Hey guys, check out the next level games for all your TCG needs. Link is down below in the description of the video. Thanks guys. What's up everybody? Welcome back to Team Fish Knuckles YouTube channel. Today is Wednesday, and what we're doing today is we're going to cover the top 3 big decks of Expanded. They're the best decks of Expanded. If you're going to Anaheim, you're going to see these 3 decks played. Probably if you go to Dallas, these are going to be the 3 biggest decks as well. And so what we're going to do today is talk about these decks, talk about some different changes you can make to them, and stuff we can see. Now, like I said, this weekend is Anaheim. This is the first set for Lost Thunder being legal for Expanded, so I'm interested to see what's going to happen, but I can't see these 3 decks not being the most played and the best decks overall. So let's go from probably the least hyped to the most hyped, and I think the least hyped deck right now is actually going to be Trevenant of the 3. So if you don't know, the 3 biggest decks that people are going to talk about for Expanded is Archie Toys, Trevenant, and Zoroark Expanded, or Zoroark just in general, right? There's a billion different forms of Zoroark. So let's go over Trevenant. It's probably the least talked about, and each one of these deck lists are actually part of the top 3 deck list from regionals this past Expanded. This is from the Oregon regionals. So we got what we're looking right now is actually the second place Trevenant list that Aaron Tarbill played. So if you notice, it's just Trevenant, you know, with Silent Fury doing 30 to put 3 damage curse to each opponent's bench, each opponent's Pokemon. You got the Forest Curse to shut down item cards, which is really strong. You got the turn 1 Ascension. Now this deck pretty much caused like a ban of Wally. Like turn 1 Trevenant was just so strong that they had to ban that Wally card, but still get an extension. Like if you go first and it's turn 2, you can still get that turn 1 Forest Curse thanks to Ascension. There's no more Wally, but you can still get Ascension, which means you just need to find a Psychic Energy or a Dimension Valley, and you can evolve turn 1 into a Trevenant. Some other things about this deck is you have, you know, Magical Swap, which is very, very strong. This card was actually banned as well. We didn't see it for a very long time, and then for some reason they banned it, and now you can use Magical Swap to move any number of damage counters on your opponent's side of the field, which is really, really strong after you're spreading. Of course, we have Espeon EX for that Miraculous Shrine to de-evolve all the Pokemon. And so you have this very powerful combination. You're item locking. A lot of decks in Expanded are, you know, they are very high item based decks, right? So they can play a lot of item cards. So Trevenant is going to shut them down and put them in a bad space. Once you're done spreading with, you know, the Trevenant break, you can use like cards like Tapu Lele, use Espeon EX and kind of manipulate your opponent's board. And also, if you notice, he included the Marshadow in here for the Let Loose. Now, Pokemon you would include in here, it doesn't really change. Nothing really, you know, changes in this list. I don't think you gain any new cards from Lost Thunder via Pokemon. I don't think you change anything. I think it's a fine Pokemon line. We see 3 Tapu Lele, of course. Alright, so we're looking through the list. You see a Counter Catcher, we can see that for sure. You're going to be down on price cards. We see 4 Enhanced Tamer, which is really, really strong because your opponent can't really use, you know, they can't use a special charge to get them back because you shut them down. 4 Mysterious Treasure is really strong because it's all Psychic. Now, Scoop Up Cyclone. Now, with this deck, you can pretty much play almost every kind of playable A-spec. You can play Computer Search for consistency. You can use Douse Machine to reuse. But we see Aaron actually use Scoop Up Cyclone to pick up his damaged Trevenant, put it back into his hand, and put it back down, which is very interesting. We really haven't seen a Scoop Up Cyclone variant, but I'm excited to see Aaron play it. Now, if you do think you need more consistency, you can add the Computer Search. If you think you need more late game, you can add Douse Machine. This is one of the flexible cards in the deck. Super Rod is definitely needed. 4 VS Seeker is definitely needed. 4 Dimension Valley is also needed as well because you need the 1 energy attack with Silent Fear. Ace Trainer is really cool because if you go play this when you have more prize cards than your opponent shuffles and gets 3. So if they take 1 knockout on Phantom, you're going to basically put them down to 3. Once again, they can't use item cards, they can't use their Ultra Balls, they can't use VS Seekers, and they're going to be in trouble. And another card we really haven't seen used in Trevenant is Brigetti here. So we see Brigetti in his list. Maybe now you can put, I don't think it's very good. Professor Elms could be somewhat played, but with Brigetti, you can get down Lele and your Phantoms, and you can't get down SP on EX because it only is a basic Pokemon. You can put down Tapu Lele, but that seems pretty counterproductive. So Ams could be played, but definitely not as good as Burgetti, because Burgetti can get you the Tapu Lele and Espeon. Colors is good. Guzma, once again, you're in this switch situation where, like we see most decks now expanded, where you can play Lysander or Guzma. Either one is fine. Guzma is really cool because it's like a switching card for Trevenant, and if your Pokemon's stuck in the active, Guzma can help out there. 3-in is really strong. Your opponent can take a bunch of prize cards. 3 Juniper, and then 1 Zoroark. And of course, the Zoroark can be switched out for Faba. Zoroark is a bad card. You just 100% put Faba in the deck because Faba puts it in the Lost Zone instead of Zoroark, so that's a big thing there. Now, we see that he did play 4 Rescue Scarves. Now, this is, once again, a card that you can switch around. You can play 4 Rescue Scarf, you can play the Bursting Balloon. I think that's pretty much the only 2, really. You can play, maybe put Weakness Policy there. Weakness Policy is good against the Zoroark decks. If you're scared of Zoroark, you think Zoroark can be huge, you can maybe try to put Weakness Policy in your deck. You're still at 160 HP Pokemon. And if you don't have your weakness to Zoroark, you can attack a little bit longer, so that it could be a card to use as well. But the Rescue Scarf seems very needed. You can cycle between your Trevenant breaks and over again, which is really cool. 4 Mysterious Energy, so your Pokemon has a 2 less retreat cost when attached to Psychic. And of course, everybody here is a Psychic Pokemon, so essentially has free retreat. 4 Psychic Energy, so you can attack. 1 Counter Energy, which I do like the Counter Energy a lot. Out of nowhere, you can pretty much like use the Magical Swap if you're out of Dimension Valley, stuff like that. You can also just like put it on anybody that's not a GX or EX, and if you're down on price cards, you can use Counter Energy like with the Trevenant break because it needs 2 energy. So that's a pretty cool inclusion we haven't really seen in Trevenant. Outside of that, Trevenant is really not going to change too much. It's a very vanilla deck, and you're going to notice there's no Ultra Balls in the deck. You can include that as well. Faba is a card you can include in the deck as well. Your ace spec could change, but outside of that, it's not going to change too much. These lists are going to stay pretty vanilla. Nothing is really going to change, like I said. But Trevenant is still a super powerful card that when you get to turn 1 Forest Curse, your opponent is going to be in trouble. The only way you're really around it now is with Garbodor, Guzma around it, or Lysander around it, and that's pretty much it, though. Nothing else really can shut down Trevenant, so Trevenant is a very strong card. We were definitely going to see this card played in Anaheim and in Texas. I think we were going to see it less in Anaheim because Anaheim is more notorious to be a Zoroark Groudon kind of place, and Texas is more like a Trevenant kind of place, if I were to think more correctly. Texas is usually more wide open as well because it's easier to go to Texas than it is California for a lot of players. So California, you're just going to have your West Coast and then maybe like some top player Pokemon, which we don't know what they're really playing. But a lot of California players they like their Lost March, they like their Night March, they like their Zoroark decks, and they like Toad. They like Toad a lot. So expect those decks a lot out there if you are going to Anaheim, if it do stay the same. So yeah, that's Trevenant. Nothing else pretty much to talk about this deck. So let's go out of here. The next one that's pretty much hyped up is actually not Archie's. The second biggest deck that I've seen people play things at Cups is actually Zoroark. Now, with Zoroark, there is a ton of different ways. Now, this is actually Jimmy Pendarva's first place Zoroark deck. And like I said, second place was Trevenant. I don't know if Archie's hit Trevenant in top 4. If that did, that explains a lot. But I think if it was the other way, if Aaron hit Groudon, and I don't know how it hit. If Aaron hit Groudon and Zoroark hit Archie's, I think that it would have been Archie's versus Trevenant, and Aaron would have won, because this deck is so strong here. But let's go over the deck. There's a lot of different things we get Zoroark. This is more of a Zoroark control deck, which I hate playing this stuff. But it's still very, very good. Do not get me wrong. Alright, so let's go with Zoroark. We know what it does. Trade, Riotous Beating. We see that Jimmy did partner with Sidestone with that Quake Punch. So basically, we're going to try to lock our opponent out of item cards, and when we start attacking, we can use that Zoroark GX person. Alright, so what else we got in here? We got an Oranguru for that resource management. We can get back any cards we want. Sudowoodo to counter the other Zoroark decks. And this is going to be a very big card. If you're a Zoroark player, you better be ready for Sudowoodo to have your bench put down to 4. Execute, of course, is great for that propagation. Trade it away. Put it back in here and trade away all that stuff. And you're going to notice something new in Jimmy's list is going to be Tortuga. Now, this is a lot for the fossil Pokemon, but they have the ability Prehistoric Call once during your turn before you attack with this Pokemon's your discard pile. You may put this Pokemon on the bottom of your deck. Essentially, you're never going to deck out. You just keep putting the bottom of your deck over and over and over again. And you're never going to deck out. You can just resource management. You can trade, hit those cards you need with resource management. It's a Tortuga, back your cards in the deck, and you're good to go. So it's a very interesting card. So one thing you could do if you want to counter this, well, I guess it doesn't matter because if you're going that route, they can't really do anything. You could try to put something in your deck to maybe play like one Team Rocket's Handiwork or something. You could maybe counter the Zoroark decks if they do trying to like get low. You can like Team Rocket's Handiwork, flip 2 coins, and discard 4 cards. That's the thing you do if you're going to counter the Zoroark control deck, which we really haven't seen too much in the cups, but do not count that out at all. Compressor. Alright, let's talk about Pokemon first. Before we go anything, let's talk about Pokemon. So, with Zoroark, there's many different ways you can play this. The biggest thing we're seeing right now is Zoroark Garbodor. Garbodor is going to be really nice to counter these Archie decks that are doing really well. They're to counter these Trevenant decks, but Trevenant, if they have the Faba, they get just discard a tool, and then they have the Trevenant online ready to go, and you can't really attach it to the tool unless you bring up another bench Pokemon, so that becomes kind of problematic. I have started seeing Gliscopod lists. Gliscopod lists can, of course, punish these Archie's decks. If you're a Zoroark player, one about Archie's, which it is somewhat of a hard matchup, I'm not going to lie to you. If the Archie's players gets going, it's very hard for Zoroark to deal with it. You do have Size Toad, you can Quake a Punch and get lucky, but if they go quick, they can just destroy your Size Toad and you're in a bad situation. And I think it does have a good matchup against this. So it's kind of luck-based. So, the Gliscopod does help out. You can one-shot those grass Pokemon, which is really, really nice for that Zoroark deck. So that's something you include in your deck as well. I've seen Lycanroc, of course. That's going to be a big card to include in your Zoroark decks. There is going to be Zoroark Macargo decks. Now with Ditto, you can play like cute stuff like a 1 Weavile. You can play a Muck in there. You can play Macargo. You can play a Lycanroc with Ditto now being included in these decks. You can pretty much play anything you want in Zoroark and include that 1 Ditto and then something else to go with it. Once again, these aren't lists I'm showing. I'm just kind of trying to talk about everything you can include in these big 3 decks. So I do think Zoroark is very, very good. You can play all these different Pokemon depending on situations. What do you think is going to be better? What do you think is going to be worse? What do you think is going to be more popular, less popular? There's a ton of different things you can do with Zoroark, but I do think the main ones are going to be Control. I think they're straight, like, the Macargo build is going to be really, really good. I think the Gliscopod is going to be big. I think Garbodor is going to be probably the biggest outside of, like, really technical players. Like, they're just going to punish, like, people like me and like people of my skill caliber are going to play Zoroark Garbodor just because you can punish them when they discard a bunch of item cards, which are really against, like I said, Archies and stuff like that. You have the Garber Toxin to shut them down, which is really, really cool. You can still put Size Toad in the deck as well. But like I said, I could never really play this deck, I'm going to be honest with you. So yeah, there we go. That's all the different Pokemon you can play in this deck. So let's go over Compressors. Pretty staple in a bunch of all different Zoroark decks. Just to discard your eggs, discard supporter cards. We see Counter Catcher, of course, very good. You're gonna be down on prizes sometimes because you are a Stage 2 deck, or Stage 1 deck. Sorry. There is a DAS Machine. Like I said, this is the same thing. You can play DAS Machine or Computer Search. It's kind of up to you either way. We see the 3 Enhanced Tamer. He looks like he's trying to counter all the other Zoroark decks, which is not a bad thing, right? If you're trying to, if you know there's going to be a bunch of Zoroark decks, of course, Enhanced Tamer is really, really good. Of course, you can count good old Faba in these decks. And this is where I think, like, playing straight Zoroark becomes scary, is now there's Faba. So when they put your DCs in the Lost Zone, there's no way you can get them out. So it's a lot scarier now thanks to Faba being around, because once it's in the Lost Zone, it's gone. So I think maybe the Gliscopod and the Garbodor decks might be a little bit better, just because you play those basic energies that Faba can't get rid of, right? So 2 Field Blower, of course, to get rid of Stadium cards. Stretch to get back Pokemon. 4 Ultra Ball, 4 VS Seeker. Nothing else too crazy outside of that. Anything is pretty much expected. Now, this is where things get kind of interesting. You're going to notice that Jimmy is actually not going for, like, the one-shot decks. He's playing for the Control variant. So he's playing a Rough Seas and the Parallel City. So Rough Seas is going to heal your Size Toad, so they punch it, you need to heal your Toad, which is great. Parallel City can put a punish Pokemon down to 3, even your side down to 3 if you want to discard some stuff, which is really cool. The other Stadium card you're going to see in Zoroark is, of course, going to be Skyfield. Very, very heavily played card we will definitely see for sure. Now, for supporter cards, you're going to notice a bunch here. There's an Acerola, Brigetti, Colress, Gladian, Guzma, Karen, Lusamine, Plumeria, Fan Clubs, Sycamore, Handiwork, Skull Grunt. So remember, this is a control variant. It's not aggressive. It's playing this cute stuff like Skull Grunt and Team Handiwork. We're going to try to discard some stuff. We want to see what's prized. We're playing Gladian, of course. We're playing Karen. Karen's actually probably just a good inclusion overall. Especially if you are playing Size Toad, you can Karen and like beat Night March that way, which I don't know how relevant Night March is going to be. I would be scared to play Night March going into this tournament just because Archies are running around. I think Lost March is probably a better deck than the Night March deck. I'm just going to be honest with you for sure. The other card you're going to see included in these lists are, of course, going to be Faba. That is the big thing that is going to destroy decks. Any deck can play Faba, and that could be your counter to Zoroark. You literally go Faba their DCE, and they go, oh man, if he's got 4 VS Seekers, all my DCs are gone. So now these Zoroark decks have to start thinking, all right, there's no, I guess, yeah, probably control Zoroark is probably a terrible idea. Probably any straight Zoroark variant is a terrible idea because they include one Faba and they can use the rest of their VS Seekers on Faba to get rid of your DCEs. You can't ever attack. You literally can't ever attack. Now, of course, with the Size Toad variant, you can Quake Punch them and they can't use Faba. But maybe, I don't know, maybe they find a way. Maybe they use Ranger VS Seeker or something cute like that. I don't know. That is definitely something you have to be scared about when you're playing these decks now, is Faba is a huge inclusion and will definitely hurt Zoroark a lot. Like I said, Zoroark is the second most talked about deck right now, just because it has other attackers like Garbodor and like Gliscopod. So that's the thing to keep in note. Anything else to play, you can play Kukui in this deck if you want to do additional damage. Outside of that, maybe you can play an Elms, but you have Bridget. Bridget seems like the better choice just overall. Bridget is just so much better expanded because it lets you grab like Oranguru, Sudowoodo, Execute, not really. Tortu, not really. But, I mean, it can grab you the stuff you need. It can grab you your Zoras, Oranguru, Sudowoodo. It can grab you other stuff. I don't think Elms is going to be played at all in expanded unless you're playing the Lost March variant with Jump Plus, and that seems very, very good. Outside of that, probably not that good of a deck. He's playing Choice Fear Belt. You can play Choice Band. You can play Muscle Band. If you notice, Aaron Tarbo's list didn't play anything like that because he needed the Rescue Stretcher. Muscle Band, Choice Band is useless, but in this deck, you can literally play anything. You can play the Choice Band, you can play the Muscle Band, you can play the Fighting Fear Belt, whatever you need in this list. Now remember, this is more Toad-centered, which is why he has a Fear Belt. It does not work on Stage 1, it's only on basic Pokemon. Flowstone, of course, is an inclusion deck, and 4 DCE. So there we go. Like I said with Zoroark, there's a billion different things we can play with this deck, how we want to play it and stuff like that. It's kind of up to you. And I'd be interested to see what's going to be the most popular Zoroark deck. Now I think about it, it's definitely probably Garbodor. It seems like the strongest of these Zoroark variants. And you still have Zoroark, you have Garbodor. These two combined together is a powerhouse of a team for sure. How do you handle Trevenant? Well, you just attack with Zoroark, of course. Very, very still good. The problem is now is they got Fabas. That's the big thing of the tournament. How much will Faba be played? Probably, if I'm going to Anaheim, I'm putting one in my deck. We're putting Faba in my decks. We're winning the Zoroark decks. Like I'm telling you, that's gonna be the game changer right there. Is Faba for sure. I'll be shocked if we see more than one Zoroark make top 8. There's gonna be a Zoroark make a top 8. 100. There's no way Zoroark doesn't make top 8. A lot of people are probably gonna play it. Maybe not. Like I said, it's not really hyped right now. The big deck right now is definitely Archie's Choice. But like I said, you can play Gliscopod, you can watch out the Arch Toys, stuff like that. So there we go. There's Zoroark. A big deck to talk about. Look at different things you can try with this. Go out, test Zoroark, especially if you're going to Dallas as well. So the last deck is going to be Archie's. This deck came pretty much out of nowhere. It wasn't really that super hyped up. Like a lot of people talked about it. going into this year because like Hex Maniac was gone, and it's gotten some hype as well when the unknowns came out. The unknown damage came out with the like what you play like the Whaler variant, but that seems to have died off and nobody really cares about that anymore. So now we see this like Archie Choice deck. This list was actually powered by Zachary Everest. Just playing good old, I'm gonna load up my Pokemon with a bunch of energies and I'm gonna knock you out. So if you've never seen an Archie's deck before, here you go. I don't know where you've been expanding, but this is probably the most hyped deck going to Anaheim. So let's go over Shaman to help you set up. Also, with Zoroark, you could play Shaman as well. I didn't include this. You can play Unknowns in your deck as well to help you draw cards and stuff like that. Also, with Zoroark, you can play like Vespa Queen and Flareon and stuff, and you can play the Stage 1 evolution that we've seen of Zol play. Like, Zoroark is so wide open. It's so diverse. I just want to make sure I'm trying to cover every Zoroark variant. But Eggs, of course, is really good to help you discard a couple cards, whatever. Tapu Lele, of course. And now, this is what I'm talking about earlier. This card right here kind of single-handedly destroys Night March. It has that Delta Plus, I think it's a Delta Plus. You take an extra price card when you take a knockout with this guy. Tri-Edge does 20 and then 40 more damage for each heads. So for 2 heads, you're taking knockouts on Night March. You're doing a ton of damage. You're taking 2 price cards. Very, very good. Keldeo, Russian, Secret Sword is really good. 50 plus 20. Now, everybody else, this is where the game kind of changes, right? We've got Palkia GX. You got that spatial control. Move any number of energy from your bench Pokemon to this active. Not very good. Hydro Pressure. 60, this deck does 20 more damage times the amount of water attached to this Pokemon, and 0 Vanish GX. 150, shovel all energy from this Pokemon, shovel all energy from each of your opponent's Pokemon into their deck. So if your opponent has a bunch of energy in the field, you can use this Palkia GX. You don't really use anybody else's GX tag. You could use Kingdra GX. It does 40 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. Still not that good. Palkia being able to shuffle all your opponent's energies back in the deck could definitely be a game changer. This could help you against a Buzzwole. You get 0 Vanish GX them, and they have no energy in the field, right? But on the other side, you could play Articuno. Only discards from the active, so maybe not. No, definitely not Articuno. This shuffles all energy from each of your opponent's Pokemon, so this is probably definitely a lot better. It does need 5 energy, but you're doing 150 damage, which will spend 180. We see this one includes a Muscle Band. The numbers are probably, I don't know, it probably hits some weird number that I just don't know on top of my head. It makes your flips a little bit better with Tri-Edge. You just need, well, you need 1 regardless. I don't know. But Palkia is just good with that 0 Vanish GX. Like, just shovel all your opponent's energy on the side of the field into their deck. It could disrupt them 100%. Blastoise is not a new card, but Deluge is really, really strong. This is why the deck is so good, because you can put a Blastoise on your bench, start attaching as many water energies as you want. Thanks to, Archies, you get that turn 1. You can only play this card when there's the last card in your hand. Put a water Pokemon on your discard pile into your bench. This is thanks done to like Order Pad, Ultra Ball, Superior, Compressor. All these different discarding cards out of your hand is going to help you get that turn 1 Blastoise. When you're playing this deck, you're going to destroy your opponent if you get that turn 1. But Kingdra GX is a new card as well that we haven't seen in these Zoroark decks. It's got 230 HP, so first off, it's a monster. But it has attack Hydro Pump. It does 10, and this attack does 50 more damage times the amount of energy attached to this Pokemon. So with 3, you're doing 160, and that's definitely a lot better than Keldeo. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So you can kind of see where Kingdra GX is really good. The only thing is you have to Archies out the Kingdra GX as well, which is, it sounds hard, but it's pretty easy to get double back-to-back Archies. If you've never played Archies before, just test it out some. I promise it seems hard, but it's easy to get Archie's hands, and you just do it. Thanks to cards, like I said, Ultra Ball, and you get Order Pad. Order Pad, flip heads, you're going to get that turn 1 no matter what. You'd be insane not to. And once you get the turn 1, and you start attaching your energies, cards like the Superior Energy Retrieval and Ultra Ball and stuff like that, it's going to help you get the turn to Kingdra GX, and you're going to start swinging with it. If not, you can just look at Keldeos and start doing a ton of damage to your sword. It's a really, really good deck. It's really good now, thanks to no Hex Maniac. But like I said, the thing with this deck is you do have to worry about Garbodor. If you notice, there's only 1 Field Blower in here, and you really can't put more than 1 in this deck, because if you start playing more than 1, you're in trouble. You're going to start losing, right? For compressor is really good. Discard your cards out of your deck. Computer search. This is the only deck you can't play a DAS machine. You can't play Super Scoop Up Cyclone, I'm sorry. You have to play computer search. You need that turn 1 computer search most of the time to help you get that turn 1 Archies. 4 Autopad is a staple now. Superior Intertrival is really good to get back 4 Water Juice in your hand. 4 Trainable, 4 12, 4 via Seeker. A lot of these Keldeo Blastoise decks are going to be super vanilla. Like, they're going to be pretty much all the same stuff. We see 2 Arches, of course. Fishman to get back your energies. Really, really strong card because now you get via Seeker for essentially 4 extra energies, of course. Guzma, once again, it's a situational thing. You can play Guzma or Lysander. Luckily, with this deck, at any point you can rush in and then Guzma if you need to, which is why we see the Guzma over Lysander no matter what in this deck. 1 in, 1 Juniper, 1 Zoroark. If you notice, there's only 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 support cards here. Once again, you're in a situation where if you play against Trevenant and they get the turn 1 tree, you're going to probably lose 100%. 1 Flowstone for that free retreat. We see a Muscle Band, 2 Muscle Band actually, to do extra damage, and 10 Water Energy. What does this really gain from Lost Thunder? Maybe outside of Faba, nothing. I can't see this deck really gaining anything. I think maybe you can put a Rough Season here to heal your water Pokemon, try to beat Trevenant that way, but even then, you're talking about multiple Dimension Valleys because Trevenant plays 4. You're talking about 1 Rough Seas, but, you know, Trevenant plays 4 Dimension Valley, so you have to play multiple Rough Seas to try to counter that. So the question is, what's the better deck? I don't know. That's up to you to decide which is the better deck. We all see the pros and cons, right? We see Trevenant. It's a very slow deck, and if you don't streamline your Trevenants, you're going to lose, right? With Archie Stoys, we see, you know, you are this super powerful deck, but your opponent can't turn 1 Marsh Shadow you, and when they Marsh Shadow you to 4, you might be in trouble. You might not hit what you want. Maybe your hand clunks up a little bit more because you have less cards to use at your utility, like Ultra Balls and stuff like that. So that could be a problem. With Zoroark, we now know Faba is a big thing. So even though these things are the big 3 decks, the 3 best decks in Expanded, it doesn't mean that exactly we won't see a new deck come up. I think that this week we're covering 4 different decks that all 4 of these can take down these top 4 decks. Also, if you're worried about Trevenant, you can put a Giratina in your deck. Giratina can shut down that the Force Curse when it does evolve into a break. So Giratina promo is really good as well. So as you see, there's a bunch of different things happening Expanded. I'm excited to see what's going to happen in Anaheim. And you know what? Whatever wins is definitely going to be on next week Expanded Thursday. You can bet that. Unless it's something super vanilla like Blastoise, which we'll probably still show it, right? Once again, we cut the Zoroark for Faba 100%. There's no need. Like, Zoroark is now a dead card. It's literally worth nothing. It is not a playable card. Like, literally, you choose a tool card or a special energy attached to a Pokemon to play, both use your opponent discard it. Well, I guess if you're trying to discard your own tool card or special energy, then you play Zoroark, right? That's fine. I'll give you that. Outside of that, Zoroark is terrible. But, guys, there we go. There are the 3 biggest decks, the best decks going into Expanded: Archie's, Trevenant, and Zoroark. Like I said, I think the biggest one we're going to see is Archie's. I actually think we might see Trevenant more than Zoroark, but I think we will see I think in it seems like we should see more Trevenant, but in reality, we're going to see more Zoroark and Trevenant. It's going to be the 3rd place deck. Nobody wants to play Trevenant. Nobody wants to play against the Trevenant, but it's really, really good. So those are the 3 best decks going into Anaheim Regionals. We'll see what happens. Like I said, I'm excited to see if the other 4 decks I cover this week actually will make an appearance. We covered essentially 7 different decks this week. And even though I covered 7 different decks, there's a ton of different decks out there that we could see. That we didn't have a chance to cover. I don't want to give away what I haven't covered. Just know there's a bunch of different decks that I haven't covered, of course. But guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this discussion where I talk about some of the best decks in Expanded. I have played Expanded for a very, very long time. Since I've played the game since 2009 and haven't stopped. But guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you tomorrow for a new I guess a new style of Expanded that is here to stay as well. But hope you enjoyed this video. Hit the subscribe button. Thank you. Alrighty. Bye.